Hey, Kevin here, Skylabs, bringing you another video. This is definitely going to be a fun one. It's really going to be a fun one for me. Today we're going to talk about the legendary stacked advents. How did this happen? Why did this happen? And what makes the advents so special when it comes to stacking speakers? It's been around forever, and it really suggests that if you stack your advents, it really improves the sound. So let's kind of get into it. We'll get to the bottom of it. I'm going to listen to them. I'm really excited about that. And then I'll let you know what I thought. So stick around. Here we go. And the original large Advent speaker came out in 1970. It is an 8-ohm speaker. While there's no official efficiency rating, most people have kind of agreed that they're right around 89 dB efficient. And the original large Advent is a two-way speaker in an acoustic suspension cabinet. These cabinets measure 14 inches by 20 inches by 9 inches. And there are two versions of the original large Advents. One they call the utility, which would be a vinyl walnut wrapped cabinet. And then you have the real wood veneer version. And the vinyl wrap ones were around $100 brand new. And the upgraded walnut veneer cabinets were $115. And in today's market, the Advent prices are really all over the place. They sold a lot of these, and I'd expect to pay anywhere between maybe $200 to $1,000 for almost like new in the box. And so why are we talking about stacking Advents? And I think most people would agree this story goes all the way back to an article in the Absolute Sound in 1974 by a guy named Harry Pearson. And the story kind of goes, they had large Advents. They liked them for the price. They thought they were amazing, but they didn't love them. And one day Harry walked into a stereo store in Atlanta where they had two sets of large Advents stacked and was immediately blown away, decided to buy another set. So they took them back to their facilities to kind of see what was going on, why stacking them was causing such a interesting change to the speaker, and that's what they did. And from there on out, it appears that Harry just loved stacked Advents. And when they released this article, it sounds like a lot of other people ran out to go try it as well. Being that the Advent speaker was so cheap at the time, it was easy to buy a couple sets and try it out for yourself. The funny thing is a lot of you know, I bought a lot of literature from a place that closed down around here, and thumbing through it, I found this, which is a bulletin from Advent that kind of describes the double Advent system. And they kind of just share the article from the Absolute Sound, and they talk about how they were really thrilled about it. And of course they would be. They're going to start selling two sets of Advents instead of one set. So I think they kind of jumped on it as well and kind of fueled the fire of this interesting phenomenon that's starting to kind of grow legs in the audio community. And I think that's why you hear about it so much online. It's still there. If you Google stacked Advents, you will get thread after thread after thread of people trying this. And while I've known about this for a while, I've never had two sets of large Advents in the store at the same time. These speakers sell very fast. And now for the fun part, I'm going to go listen to the stacked Advents. I will be back with my thoughts, and I'm going to share them with you. I'm really hoping that I am totally blown away. And our source for the music is actually from the Weem. We just became a dealer. We have them available now at skylabsaudio.com/shop. We have minis and we have the pros with the remote. So if you have been on the fence about grabbing a Weem, definitely head over to skylabsaudio.com/shop and grab yourself a Weem. And I am back, and I have had a great time. I have been down here at the shop a few times over the last couple of days, just listening to different pieces of music and really kind of giving these things a run for their money. And I'll be honest with you, what I experienced is nothing like what I thought I was going to experience. And we're going to get into that, but we got to go over the setup first. What we used was a Pioneer SA9100 integrated amplifier with 65 watts per channel, and that's what fed the 4 Advent speakers. And being that Advent only calls for a minimum of 20 watts per channel, I figured this would be just fine, and it was. And for our source, we actually streamed high-res audio from Deezer and fed that through a Weem Mini. And while I did play around with the placement of these speakers a little bit, I'd move them forward, backwards. I brought them towed in, and then I also had them flat against the wall. However, when it came down to stacking the Advents, I already knew the way I wanted to do this, and I figured since Paul McGowan from PS Audio has already explained how to stack speakers the correct way, we would just hear it from the man himself. So let's do that.
You know, there have been numerous examples of people stacking speakers successfully. One of the ones that I remember from years ago was when our old friend Harry Pearson of the Absolute Sound, a reviewer, had what they called stacked Advents. And he was in love with that system. And what they did, which was kind of interesting, and I don't know if you're doing it, he did something that isn't making a classic mistake. When we stack speakers, let's say we have a speaker this tall, and we want to stack two of them. So there's let's say it's a two-way like Sam has. There's a woofer mid-range and a tweeter, and they're this tall. Now if I take a second pair and I stack it on top of the first, now I have tweeter, tweeter, woofer, woofer. That's the wrong way to do it. If you're going to stack speakers, flip the other one upside down. Now we have tweeter, tweeter, woofer, woofer. That's what's called a diapolito. What's important is that the drivers are sort of at the higher frequencies, which become more directional, should be closer together to make that work. So that's some advice for you.
And since I definitely agree with that, and I think most of the people out there do as well, I stuck with this configuration. If you use the bottom to top method and you enjoy it, stay with it. It doesn't matter. Try flipping it over. If you like that better, switch. If you don't, stick with what you're doing. It doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. I just think most people that understand speaker design would suggest using that exact method. And that's why we stacked ours the way we stacked them, just like they are here. And so what was my experience like? And to me, this is where it gets really interesting in that I kind of had an idea in my head of what I was going to experience. I've heard a lot of Advents in my life. I've owned several sets. They've been my daily drivers before. So I kind of had an idea of what I was going to experience, and what I experienced was completely different than what I thought. I kind of had it in my head that I was going to be down here listening to, Tool and Daft Punk, high energy music, maybe some AC/DC or Dire Straits, stuff, a lot of impact, a lot of kick drum, a lot of bass. And I thought I was going to be getting like this wall of sound type of experience. The really odd thing about this is with a lot of music like that, I tend to like it louder than a lot of people might like to listen to things at. I am not scared to push my stereo, let's just say that. Rather than in between songs, reaching over and kind of bumping up the volume, I actually found myself turning it down a couple times because I actually enjoyed the sound of these at a lower volume than I would normally listen to that type of music on. So by the third or fourth song, I started thinking, you know what, I think I need to change this up a little bit and maybe go a different direction. So I actually put on a song by Ray Charles off of Ray Loves Company. It's with Natalie Cole, and I'm not the biggest fan of the song. The production, however, to me is incredible. It's one of the best recorded songs out there. And that it's super organic, it's super dynamic, great bass, the drums get really percussive, good vocal separation. And this, I definitely got something out of. Once again, I liked it a little bit lower in the volume, but it doesn't matter. This sounded really good. This sounded more like kind of what I expected going into it. So at this point, I thought, well, these speakers are going to kind of tell me what I should be listening to. So I switched over to two cellos. I listened to a few tracks by them, and then I went to Sigur Rós, which is really kind of atmospheric and dramatic. And this is where my experience really changed for the positive. Before, I was kind of worried about coming on here and kind of kicking the can down the road and being like, yeah, it was okay. But this changed everything. When I started listening to like Sigur Rós and Beach House, I listened to some Muddy Waters folk singer, which was incredible on this. There was anything that had a lot of openness to it and a lot of space is where I think the stacked advents really shined for me. And if I didn't mention it before, I never touched the treble control or the loudness knob or any of that stuff. I kept the switch on the back of the advents to the neutral position, so I wasn't boosting or attenuating the highs. I was trying to keep this whole system as neutral as possible to really just see what is truly in these speakers and what they're like stacked. And there's a point to bring up in that I do think most speakers kind of lend themselves to specific genres. I think the more balanced the speaker is, the more it will handle different genres of music. But with me and the stacked advents, I do feel like while one set of advents I feel is pretty neutral, I feel like you can play pretty much a whole swath of music on it. And for some reason with stacking them, I do feel like it kind of pigeonholed them in what kind of music they wanted to play. It's almost like they've got a mind of their own in a way. And I know that sounds goofy, but so for some reason, stacking the advents to me seemed to kind of dictate what I wanted to listen to, as opposed to just maybe one set of advents where I feel like plays the whole gamut really well. And I don't know why that is, but that was the impression I've gotten over the last few days, listening to a pretty good wide range of music. That is the beauty of having multiple sets of speakers, in that I do think your speakers will kind of steer your taste in music in a way. You know, I tend to listen to music that plays well on the current system I have. It's just the way it is. It's not to say that I couldn't sit in front of these and enjoy Daft Punk or Metallica or AC/DC or something like that. It's just that I'd rather sit in front of them and listen to, you know, maybe Ray Charles or Muddy Waters or Sigur Rós or something orchestral. And that's just all it is. So in my conclusion, why I had a really great time doing this, I'm glad I got to experience so I can have an opinion on it. I don't see myself ever having a set of stacked advents set up in my home on a regular basis. I honestly think you could probably get one speaker that would kind of replicate that experience, even like a Dahlquist or an ESS maybe, really an electrostatic speaker is really kind of what that reminded me of. However, if you're one of the many people out there that swear by the stacked advents, there's nothing wrong with it. I thought they sounded great. And in your room with your music, you could have a totally different experience. The last thing you should do, in my opinion, is ever let somebody tell you what sounds good or sounds bad, even if it's a Krakow or a Yorks or a sound design stereo. If that sounds good to you, then own it and love it, because I think there are a lot of people out there that are struggling to find the perfect system. I appreciate everybody making it to the end of another video for sure. Definitely, if you have stacked advents or if you use stacked speakers on a regular basis, put it in the comments. Love reading through those. Also, if you are planning on stacking speakers or adding more than one set of speakers to your stereo, make sure you understand series and parallel. Make sure you understand ohms, because you can really damage your amplifier if you don't know what you're doing. But just be careful when hooking up more than one set of speakers. You don't want to end up with your amplifier at a technician because the ohms dropped too low for the amplifier to handle and you smoked it. Hopefully all of you are out there getting to try new gear on a somewhat regular basis, because that's what life's all about, I think. So have a great week. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next video.